Hi, welcome to a District of Columbia emergency shelter. If you're watching this video, you or someone you care about is experiencing an episode of homelessness, and the DC Department of Human Services has your back. We are here to ensure this episode of homelessness is rare, brief, and non recurring, and that begins with giving you the most accurate information possible. So listen carefully and remember, you can pause or replay this video anytime, so don't worry about catching everything I say the first time. Let's start with the basics. First, we don't want anyone to experience homelessness, period. So before you consider sleeping in an emergency shelter, make sure you've done everything possible to stay independently housed with the support from friends, relatives, or coworkers. The only reason you should ever come to an emergency shelter is if you've exhausted every possible option without success. If you have exhausted every option, please don't sleep outside. Sleeping on the streets exposed to the elements put you and others at risk, and the district has emergency shelters to keep you safe and protected from the elements. If you've made the decision to come into an emergency shelter, let me tell you a little more about what an emergency shelter is and what it isn't, and what services you can take advantage of while you're there. Let's start with how you get there. If you need help getting transportation to a shelter site, the district partners with community-based organizations to operate something called the Shelter Hotline. The Shelter Hotline offers services 7 days a week, including year-round transportation, outreach, and referral services with around-the-clock assistance in the winter months by way of emergency transportation and the provision of comfort items. In the warmer months, the hotline provides transportation to cooling stations when temperatures are excessively high. You can access the shelter hotline by calling 311 or by dialing 202 399 7093. The district and our partners operate multiple types of emergency shelter for single adults. For women's, we have the Nativity Shelter, which is closest to Fort Totten and Georgia Avenue metro stations, the Pat Handy Shelter for women in Chinatown, and Harriet Tubman Shelter on the campus of DC General next to Stadium Armory Metro. For men, the Adams Place Shelter and New York Avenue shelters are both closest to New York Avenue metro stations, and the 801 East Shelter is between the Anacostia and Congress Heights station on the Green Line. These shelters are referred to as the low barrier shelters and in exchange for fewer program rooms. These facilities are only open during certain hours, so residents must exit the facility every day unless they have a reasonable accommodation from a doctor. In other shelters, residents can keep their beds for longer as long as they meet program requirements, like working or participating in a substance abuse or mental health treatment program. Regardless of the type, an emergency shelter is exactly what it sounds like. It's a temporary place to sleep during an emergency. It's not a home, and the district expects you to have a very brief stay in an emergency shelter while you work to resolve issues that prevent you from being independently housed. Your goal should be to get out of here and back into stable housing within days and weeks, not months or years. If this is your first night in an emergency shelter, you'll notice a few things right off the bat, which can be pretty intimidating. First, you might see a line of people waiting to get inside. That's because emergency shelters operate on a first come, first served basis, and some people line up to make sure they get a bed when the doors open. Waiting in line is entirely up to you. We have your back. So if you get to a shelter and they're out of beds, the district likely has an available bed in another shelter, which the shelter hotline can help you get to. So don't worry too much about the line. Second, you'll be asked to go through security. Just like getting on an airplane, we screen all shelter residents for dangerous materials before coming inside. This protects shelter residents and staff and ensures the facility is free of drugs, weapons, or other unauthorized objects so that you can have a peace of mind while inside. Third, you'll be asked to provide information as a part of the intake process. As a new resident, we need some basic information about you so we can serve you better. In addition to your name and contact info, we need to know what kind of medications you take. Are you diabetic? If so, we need to have a special meal prepared for you. Some shelters will ask if you completed a housing assessment, commonly referred to a VI SPADAT. Be as honest as possible with the shelter staff because they are there to assess your needs and recommend you for specific type of resources when they become available. Those staffs will also explain your rights and responsibilities and walk you through the do's and the don'ts during your stay in shelter. Once you've completed intake, you'll be assigned a bed. Get yourself settled and relaxed because the staff at the facility is there to help you. While staying in an emergency shelter, the district and our partners offer a suite of services for you to help minimize your stay and get you back into stable, independent housing. In addition to a bed, you'll be given clean linen and shown where the shower and bathroom facilities are located. Each night, you'll receive a warm meal. Some low barrier shelters like New York Avenue, 801 East, and Pet Handy offer limited medical services through a partnership with a local nonprofit, and all shelters provide access to case management services to assist with your individual needs. For an example, they can help you understand how to get a DCID and collaborate with you on a plan to get back into stable, independent housing. They can provide referrals for services to transitional housing, substance use, and mental health treatment. They can connect you to employment services, food stamps, vocational rehabilitation, and therapeutic groups. But most case management services are giving referrals to other providers in our continuum of care. They are not providing services directly. Also, case managers are trying to help all clients get oriented and are focusing on those who have most significant needs. As a newcomer, they're not dedicated to you like a doctor is dedicated to one patient. So you'll be given a referral to employment, behavior health, or a housing program that offers dedicated case management to its participants. Now that we've talked about what services you can access in shelter, let's talk about what's not directly provided in shelter. Even though some shelters offer basic medical services, you'll need to connect with a primary care provider to get your ongoing health needs met. Just like health services, low barrier shelters don't offer mental health or substance abuse services on site, but they can help connect you to those as well. Low barrier shelters rarely provide a hearty breakfast or lunch, but they can help you figure out where you can get a good meal during the daytime. Even though you get a locker, shelters do not store anything that doesn't fit into that locker. So if you have a lot of personal belongings, shelters can help you get with that. They also use their laundry machines to wash the linens and towels every day. So the shelters usually do not offer personal laundry services, but they can help you find a laundromat or other providers who offer laundry services or even a place to get free clothing. Many people experiencing homelessness need access to legal services, but those are not usually provided in shelter. Although Wi-Fi is usually offered, there's very limited computer usage in our shelters, so you'll need to go off-site to use a computer to work on your resume, apply for jobs, or search for housing. Children are not allowed, and no child care is provided. Same goes for pets, unless it's a service animal. There's no job training on site and no housing voucher offered just because you're in shelter. Shelter staff can help you learn how to access those supports, but they don't deliver them directly. All of the services offered in emergency shelter are designed to meet your emergency needs and to help you get back into stable, independent housing as quickly as possible. However, for a small number of people, more significant help might be needed. That's where an assessment comes in. After working with case management staff, you may be asked at some point to complete an assessment, often called a SPDAT or a VI SPDAT. This questionnaire helps your case manager get to know you better. It asks more in-depth questions about physical health, how long you've been homeless, mental health, and things like that. Once they've learned a little bit more about your unique situation, they can figure out how to best help you. When you're participating in the SPDAT process, it is very important to provide responses to each question as truthfully as possible. This helps homeless service providers get the best understanding of your unique situation. Remember, you are your most important advocate, so don't be shy about telling us what's really going on in your life physically, emotionally, or mentally. Another benefit to the assessment is that it gets your name entered into a big database of everyone who needs housing. The housing providers access the database whenever they have new openings. So by doing the assessment, you're essentially throwing your hat in the ring and making it known that you need help getting stable housing. as you only need to throw your hat in the ring once because your information gets entered into a shared database. You don't have to go from provider to provider retelling your story. To do the assessment, you'll be asked to give us permission to capture your information in the database, which is shared with other homeless service providers and housing providers in DC, people who might be in the position to help you. Some people take the assessment as it tells us that you're pretty self sufficient and independent. Something like security deposit may be helpful, but otherwise, you don't need to have a case manager checking on you all the time or anything like that. If that's your case manager, if that's you, your case manager can connect you to employment related resources or emergency rental assistance programs to help you reconnect with your family for other housing options. Other people take the assessment and it tells us that you have some mild physical or mental health concerns, some substance use, or history of episodic homeless, but are otherwise pretty independent and don't need a case manager checking in on you every day. You basically need a leg up, but you otherwise have things pretty well managed. In those cases, a program like rapid rehousing or shared housing might be appropriate for you. Those programs are more scarce, but we can help you get in line and get all your documents together when an opportunity arises. Lastly, for a small group of individuals, the assessment will reveal that you have a lot going on in your life. You may have significant mental health or medical issues, disabilities, or history of chronic homelessness. And you're always going to need a case manager checking in on you. In those cases, more intensive supports like permanent supportive housing might be appropriate, and your caseworker can help you get everything in order when those resources become available. By participating in the assessment process, you are entering a process that we call coordinated entry, which includes four elements. The first element we already talked about. It is an assessment and the resulting data which lives in a centrally managed secure database. The second element is a group of professionals who routinely gather to review the data and discuss who needs what level of supports. When they find an appropriate client for an available resource, they match the client to the resource and they make contact with you to tell you that you've been matched. The third element is a housing opportunity, which comes in all shapes and sizes. This can be rapid rehousing, transitional housing, target affordable housing, permanent supportive housing, or a veteran voucher. Some are more rare than others, but all of them are hard to come by in the district. The fourth element is a case manager who's consistently working with you and advocating on your behalf for resources and support. This is the person who will help you navigate the housing process if you need that level of help and support. All of these pieces together constitute the district's coordinated entry system, and it is a work in progress. But rest assured that a dedicated group of people is constantly working to ensure those who need more help can get access to it. So we've thrown a lot of information at you, and you may be asking, what's the bottom line? So here it is. Emergency shelter is for emergencies. For most people, it is a temporary solution during a difficult but temporary time in their lives. It is not a home. So while you're experiencing homelessness, remember, you are welcome at any of our emergency shelters, but we do not want to see you here for long, and we don't want you to ever have to come back. While you're here, take advantage of the services, and if you need more help, get assessed. But remember, there's no straight line path from emergency shelter toward a permanent home. Each person's path is going to look slightly different based on his or her needs. There are very few housing resources available. We will do everything possible within our resources to help you get back into stable, independent housing. But always remember that you are your own best resource. No matter what, we've got your back. Good luck. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more videos.